The most dangerous lies are not the chaotic ones told in panic. They are the ones crafted in silence, rehearsed in darkness, and delivered with the flawless poise of a victim. The official story is always the simplest, and in the case of inmate 822, the story was a masterpiece of tragedy. But after 2 decades of service, Corrections Officer Cale understood a fundamental truth of his profession. The most perfect stories hide the most monstrous truths. Her name was Mara, and her file read like a textbook case of coercion. Accessory to a fatal robbery, forced into the role of getaway driver by an abusive boyfriend, Rick. She was the picture of broken humanity, quiet, reserved, and carrying a sorrow that seemed too authentic to be fabricated. In the ecosystem of Northwood Correctional, she was a wounded dove among vultures. For 3 years, this performance had been flawless, but Cale, a seasoned observer of human deception, knew that perfection itself is an anomaly, and anomalies demand investigation. He never engaged in overt interrogation. His method was patience. His tools were ambient conversation and unnerving observation. He would pass her cell during his nightly rounds, making quiet remarks about the weather or the deafening silence of the block. Her responses were always brief, always tinged with a poetic sadness. When he asked about the classic novel in her hands, she replied, "It's about how easily a good person can be destroyed." Every word was a carefully placed brick in the wall of her innocence. But Cale wasn't admiring the wall, he was searching for the fissure. His work began in the archives, cross-referencing the minutiae of her case file with public records during his own time. He analyzed the autopsy of her violent boyfriend and the preliminary statements from the crime scene. He wasn't looking for a smoking gun, he was looking for a single dissonant note in an otherwise perfect symphony. He found it on page 47 of the forensics report, a minor detail about the victim, the young cashier, a small, crescent-shaped birthmark above his left eye. That evening, Cale stood before her cell. The air was cold, the silence absolute. "The guilt must be a heavy burden," he began, his tone disarmingly empathetic. "Never seeing the young man's face, but knowing you drove the car. It must haunt you." Mara looked up, her eyes instantly clouding over with practiced grief. "Every single day," she whispered. Cale nodded slowly, his gaze clinical. "It's a shame you never saw him. The report said he had a distinctive birthmark right over his left eye, a small crescent moon." Silence. It was not the silence of confusion. It was the Arctic silence of a predator whose camouflage has just been compromised. A flicker of pure black fury ignited in her eyes before being expertly extinguished. But Cale had slipped. How could I possibly know that?" She countered, her voice straining to maintain its victimhood. "You couldn't," Cale replied, his own voice now stripped of all warmth. "Because your boyfriend, Rick, died in the passenger seat without ever speaking another word. He couldn't have told you. The only person who could have known about that birthmark was someone who stood over the body." He stepped closer, his presence commanding the space between them. "Rick was leaving you. I saw the records. You weren't his victim. You were his liability. That robbery wasn't his desperate plan. It was your meticulously crafted exit strategy. It was a means to an end, to eliminate him and any witnesses in a single chaotic event." Cale paused, letting the weight of his reconstruction fill the cell. "You didn't just drive the car, Mara. You directed the tragedy, and when it was over, you walked back inside to ensure the story would be yours alone to write." The woman in the cell stared back at him, the illusion of the broken dove shattered, revealing the cold, calculating serpent beneath. Her lips curled into a slow, knowing smile, utterly devoid of warmth and shockingly devoid of remorse. As Cale turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the sterile corridor, he felt the familiar chill. He hadn't exposed a common criminal. He had confirmed the existence of a far more terrifying entity, a monster who had mastered the art of wearing a human face.